if you're involved in the resort business, then you're very aware of the necessity of sales to stay in business. But you're constantly competing with distractions, particularly since COVID has created a pent-up demand for travel. All these travel companies are broadcasting a lot of distractions. So how do you retain your prospects' attention? So David Stroeve, of course, is head of ADS Consulting. He is going to begin the first part of a 3-part series on how to achieve sustainable sales growth. So we're delighted to have you, David.
Well, I appreciate that, and I really thank Resort Trades for allowing me to host, in my opinion, this very important topic today. You know, many things have been changing, but one of the things that is known for any business is any business needs to grow at some level, whether it's new customer acquisition, higher revenue, better profits, more locations. They're always looking to expand. And so let me go over to my slide. And, you know, today more than ever, it's about the right type of growth that matters for companies. And we've seen this going on since 2008, and it's happened multiple times, and then it happened again in COVID. If you go back to 2018, 41% of the revenue in the business was done by new owners. That means that 59% was done by existing owners. That's not a sustainable business model. At some point, it's going to cannibalize itself. And this last year, of all the companies I've talked to, they made their revenue and their profit on existing owners. And it's becoming a wider gap today than ever before in this business. And companies that are not paying attention to that are going to implode at some point. You can't sustain a model where you don't have consistent new owners coming in. And so those new owners, they've been impacted over the last decade from a myriad of things. I'm going to hit on one real key point about that. Because what's been going on, if you look at the performance of a sales operation, a lot of people look at volume per guest or VPG. That really isn't the metrics to look at to see if your sales team, if your sales process is actually getting better. Why? Because when the company raises their price, that in essence is going to raise volume per guest. The average price is going to go up. So if net close stays the same, then they will continue to see that higher number. And that's a profitability measure more for a company. And if you look over the past decade with companies, the net close rate for so many has stayed very static. And so that's one of the issues is, and what is it doing? It's impacting not only the attraction of guests, it's impacting the performance, and it's impacting the retention as well. So, you know, I want to throw this out because this is one of the main things, which is why have companies not improved their sales performance and achieved higher sales metrics over the past decade? And that's the question that I want to help answer over these next 3 sessions, and really give some, you know, just key distinctions to help companies think about what to do different. And one of the core things is that you always look at doing incremental improvements. And incremental improvements are improvements that you don't feel, you don't know that they're happening. If you improve at 0.5% per month in a year, that's a 6% improvement. Well, if you were at a 15% close rate then at the end of the year, you'd be at 15.9. And the compounding effect of incremental improvement over time, and you could look at any investment chart and it will show you what it starts to do from a profitability of a company. So that's what we're going to get into. That's what we're going to talk about. And I want to begin this session by talking about, differentiating yourself from what's going on in the marketplace. What is one of the main catalysts that has been affecting new buyers getting in? And so that's what I want to talk about. I want to talk about, well, how do you become the exception? And I love this quote: the company that follows the crowd will usually go no further than the crowd. But the company who walks alone is likely to find themselves in a place that nobody has ever been before. So when you start distinguishing yourself, not only as a company, but as a salesperson, you really start to increase performance. So what's the issue? The issue is the negative public perception that is out in the marketplace. And see, this public perception has been going on for years, and law firms have been going out and misleading the public. They have been putting out false statements, misleading information, making people believe that their investment or their purchase was a very bad purchase. I just heard the other day, one of the gentlemen, I forget his law firm, he was bragging that today he's got over 300 employees just doing timeshare relief. Well, that just tells you that, okay, so the way that they get there is they put fear into people and they make people believe that they were lied to, when in fact, the law firms are the ones really misleading the public out of a great purchase that they made, which has long-term savings. And so I want to cover that because that's kind of one of the key things. These companies make false leading statements like you bought a bad investment or you gave somebody a blank check. And so they're exploiting the consumer with this content, which has impacted the attraction, of course, the net close rate, and then the retention as well. I just talked to someone, I'm here in Vegas, and they said our first gen, our new owners right now, we're losing them at about a 40% cancellation rate. And I was astounded because it's actually one of the brands. So what I want to hit on is, okay, well, what does the consumer really know? Okay, well, they're being told that it was a bad investment. They're being told that it doesn't work. The product doesn't really work, and it's not easily sellable. And the whole thing about changing and shifting is it's not very difficult, because most of the time it's within the dialogue, it's within the language that you're using. So let's just take these three real quick. As an investment, timeshare wasn't or shouldn't have never been sold as an investment. Maybe it did because operations allowed that to be said. But timeshare has always been about a cost-saving program. That's what it is. It's a hedge against inflation. It's fixing the cost, and then after the asset is paid off, long-term, you're traveling on the nominal cost of the dues. But they say, we gave them a blank check, and so what you have to do is you have to plant the seed of doubt. And I'm really going to talk about that for a second. The tradability of it, there's so much more flexibility, choices, options, freedom in the marketplace today than ever before. So that really isn't true. And when it comes to sellability, and this is one thing that companies, I strongly recommend shifting away from. The product was never about sellability, because if you talk about sellability, then you are indirectly talking about an investment. And it's not. It's a savings program. The product is not about sellability. It was always about transferability. You can transfer the product to those within your family, your heirs, right? So it's not about using words that create the perception that is what the law firms are doing to try and bait people into believing that they were misled within the sales presentation. And so, well, how do you widen the gap? How do you be different? I want to talk about that real quick. But I want to hit on this because the key thing about combating public perception is you have to plant the seed of doubt. Doubt in and of its essence makes someone question the information. And then so doubt does not create trust. And it's so huge. And one of the best examples I can give is happening right now within the US and this whole argument about where did COVID start. And it's coming out in the news that, you know, there was a question, was it really from a lab or not? And now there's a lot of information saying, well, maybe it was. And so this disinformation, the public really is, you know, in a place to where they don't know what to trust. And that works really well for companies because if people don't know what to trust, then you can position yourself, your message, and your sales teams can talk about the content in a way to create that seed of doubt. And when you do, and you say that these relief companies, they're looking for their own pocketbook and making money, but what they're doing is they're hurting you, the consumer, because the product itself and the value behind it has never changed. It's a long-term saving program for people to enjoy their vacation experience and have more consistency. And I'm going to talk about the 3 C's very shortly, but it allows people to have that experience on a more consistent basis. The other thing that people need to do when you talk about widening the gap, separating yourself, right, is that you got to share the limitations. You got to talk about what it won't do. See, timeshare was never, ever sold, or it should have never been sold as this is the solution to your travel problem. No, because now today, consumers are buying pretty much everything on the internet. And you see it everywhere. I mean, I'm talking about a package delivery company that I was just talking to, and the volume of packages that happened this past year on a daily basis has been consistent with the package delivery during Christmas. So people are online. So if you're talking negatively about what's going on about buying your stuff online, then but that's their life. That's our life right now. And so timeshare hasn't ever been about that. Timeshare has always been about you can get access into an exclusive club of resorts, not only within the company, but within a network. And you can access all those at a very inexpensive rate. But still you get access to the world like everybody else does. But everybody else doesn't get access to your private club of products. And there are limitations because they are not everywhere. And so as long as you share that, you build that trust. And the final point here is, and you hear this so often, is that when you get in front of someone's argument, someone's objection, you diminish the value of that objection. If you allow them to state the objection, then now they want to defend that position. And it's so much harder to convince someone otherwise and change their belief. So that's why you're planting the seed of doubt, because that doubt starts to change a belief so that you can create a new one and start a new beginning. So let's talk about the 3 most common mistakes companies make real quickly. You know, talking about the negativity of rent, that is old school. That is 20, 30 years old. That is, if people continue to do that, they're going to continue to diminish the return of consumers buying. Because at the end of the day, everybody wants flexibility, options, choices, and freedom in what they do. And companies have taught people to say things like, well, you're throwing away your money if you rent. I mean, or they'll say something to where, are you ever going to get a financial return on all your rental receipts? And these are just, they're really asinine statements to make. They're derogatory in nature because, first off, nobody throws away money. Nobody does. And if you bought a vacation experience, you got the value of the money you were willing to spend. So why is the industry still comparing it against rent? That doesn't make sense anymore. You can create the value proposition without degrading the competition, which is mostly where everybody is going. Everybody books travel online today. Nobody goes through a travel agency. So then why talk negatively about where someone's going to go anyway? What you do is you position it, and you do it by using the 3 C's. And this is what I was going to talk about is you do it by talking about the consistency that if you have it, you are more likely to use it. It is much more convenient because you now can go where you want to go, when you want to go. And the most important word of these 3 is capability, because capability implies that someone has the financial means to do it. So when you start talking about you've now got the capability to go when your family needs to get away, when you guys want to take that amazing vacation, you now have the capability to make that experience happen. Why? Because you bought into a program that actually is saving you a tremendous amount of money over the long haul. And if you're comparing this product to rent, and whoever's listening to me, if you forecast this out, then you know it's a long time before there's a break-even price point between if I just did it on my own or if I bought into this ownership. And that long-term break-even point is further out than most people think today. So you want to get away from that. The second one is people focus on their own agenda. I've trained so many people on this because it is well known in the business that salespeople will always tell you, make a friend, make a sale. Okay, well then how do you really do that? Well, there are 5 laws of influence. The reciprocity law, but I'm going to hit on the likability law for a second. The likability law says, if you like me, then I'm much more likely to like you. Okay, if that, and these laws are universal laws. So then why not train your salespeople at the moment they walk out and they greet their clients that mentally they're only thinking of one thing only. Find something you like about your clients, something you like that makes you like them. And when you do that, that connection, that intrinsic connection starts to build, and it actually creates a much better level of communication during the flow of the whole presentation. So, everybody wants to feel fulfilled. It's just part of the essence of our life, and we want to feel like we have lived a good life. When people are focused on their clients' needs, not theirs, they are so much more likely to get them at least engaged into thinking through, how can this improve my lifestyle for a better tomorrow? And then the last one I want to talk about is, companies are always slow to change. And this is why people don't like change. But here's the thing, is that change is required to grow. Incremental changes are required to compound and become better in the future. Well, how do you get there then? Well, I've learned through 25 years of being in this business, when you're inside the business, we're very blind to what's going on because of internal politics, relationships, the current processes, just the overall environment. It's no different than a farmer that doesn't smell his own farm, but when someone comes on that has not been there, they're appalled at the smell. And that's the key thing, is having someone that can bring a new perspective, that can see things in a manner that can help the organization micro through these incremental changes. And I know there's egos involved. I fully get that. But I love Albert Einstein's quote, and he said that we cannot solve our problems with the same thinking that we used when we created them. And we can't. So you need new thinking. You need new insight sometimes to be able to get there. So let's talk about how to get the competitive advantage. And I actually, Marcus Lemonis, if you guys know him from The Profit, he's always talked about this. He's talked about, in his mind, the three most important P's in business: product, process, people. So let's talk about this real quick, because the product itself, yes, there's going to be change within the product. Everything that I hear, the long-term liability is the biggest Achilles heel right now within the industry. A lot more people just want to have the experience, not own the experience. So how do you combat that anyway? Well, the easiest way is teaching your salespeople, and this goes back to the negativity that is said in the marketplace by the law firms, that you don't know what it's going to cost in the future. Well, here's what we all know. The due structure of an operation is so far less than if some consumer went and did that experience on their own. It is. So that's the value proposition of the entire industry to begin with. So instead of hiding behind that statement, you actually get out in front and you explain that the due itself is your wholesale rate. That's how you're able to continue this lifestyle long term. As far as process goes, the process of this industry, it's a lot of the sales stuff that I've heard is 20 to 30 years old, and they're still doing it. They're still teaching people these trivial things. They're using the wrong language. Language creates perception. Perception creates reality. If you think of the Roman Empire, they only lasted 800 years. More importantly, if you think of the current Fortune 500 companies, in 13 years, 40% of those companies will be gone. So if you're not looking to evolve your process, if you're not looking to retrain and change the language of how people are communicating today, and if that language is still consistent with the negativity of the perception, then you're going to have the diminishing return of clients coming in. You're going to have the diminishing return of your net close and the cancellation rate. And then the last is the people. This has become dominant in business today. People are the primary asset of a company. It used to be finance. It used to be, can I acquire enough money to be able to build out my business? No. Today, it's about the people. Do I have the right people, and am I training and educating and giving them the right knowledge for them to excel? And so the people is the core element. But if you've got individuals in the operation that are still in the mindset that we've got to say that it's an investment, we've got to talk negatively about renting, there's appreciation as a possibility in this, all that stuff, you cannot. Here's the deal, is that you're fighting against a broader message than what you can deliver. And unless you create doubt that their message is wrong, they're not going to believe your message. And I love this quote by Warren Buffett: you only have to do a few things right as long as you don't do too many things wrong. And so my next session is really going to be focused around the people, because the people is the core. So the title of the next session will be the solutions to the 5 biggest problems companies make with their most valuable asset and how to get the best performance from them. So that'll be the next session of this series. And I thank you who attended. And I'd love any questions about it.
Well, as a matter of fact, I have some of my own. And by the way, I really appreciate your putting this together. It's a lot of thought provoking material there. But I did want to know, you talked about being different and creating your own brand identity. So how do you suggest a company could go about doing that?
Good question. Brand identity starts from top down. It has to start from the company becoming more aggressive about their value proposition and really getting that out in the marketplace. But then it also has to move down to, of course, the frontline salespeople that are actually having new buyers become part of the family, let's say, right? And one thing that as I've gone through a lot of training with clients, if the management team is not bought into the language, the process, the new positioning, then that change will last a very short time, because they won't support what was just taught. So you have to change from top down. You have to start with your leadership. Your leadership is the most important critical path for companies. And I love this quote. I think it's by Darren Hardy, that says that employees will ever run as fast as the leaders that are in front of them. That's as fast as they can run, right? Because if one of the employees runs faster, guess what? That employee becomes one of the leaders. So employees will only ever move as fast as the leadership team.
Right. That's a very good point. Life is so transparent today. So how should a company interact with social media?
Social media is where people go for news and for information. I'm going to start backwards on this. If there is no change in the sales process, if the sales process remains stuck in the way that they've been doing it, and you hear this, well, this is just how we've done it. Okay, but I go back to my initial statement in the beginning. If your net close, and I invite anybody to take a look at their net close, and I'm willing to bet over the past decades, it's virtually flat. And you can see it overall in the industry. You can see it in the data from ARDA, is that metrics hasn't changed. Well, then all the training, all the education, everything you've been doing hasn't improved the salesperson with the brand new buyer. And I'm not talking about existing owners. They are buying at a higher clip today than ever before. I'm talking about the new segment that if you don't change this relationship, that it's not a sustainable model for this industry. And so it has to start there, because if consumers go out and they keep saying, I was lied to, I was misrepresented, and they're saying that because in the back of their mind, they keep hearing from all the law firms that are they're ambulance chasers in this business, feeding that false narrative to the consumer. At some point, the consumer is going to believe it. If they're seeing it and saying, well, I was misrepresented. I was told that it was a sellable asset. I was told that, I could sell it for more than I paid for it. I was told that it would be easy to use and there was no negative, baby negatives used or limitations. It's almost impossible to change that unless you just do what a lot of companies do and suppress the negative comments. In my opinion, you got to get out and you got to share how you're very different. Our product is a savings-based product. Our product, and just like what I was talking about, I would never use the word deed because deed implies asset. Deed implies long-term value. This is one of the buzzwords that teams are using. But that implies the negative sentiment that is out there that if you keep doing it, you're going to lose that battle. It's not about that. It's about a membership into this portfolio to where you now have the right to use it exclusively when that time is right. And you're still going to do other things. You're still going to go stay in hotels. You're still going to go, stay with family. But when that vacation really counts, that's when you're going to really go and use this product to create that experience. And man, when it's positioned right and you frame it right, then you set the right expectation for the consumer.
Oh, that's right. So how does a company start introducing a new way of thinking and behaving, particularly if it's been, if it's scary, really,
yeah,
to change.
Not only is it scary, but there's so many egos involved. A lot of egos involved. And what's interesting is that early on, I learned in business that, and it came from a quote from Henry Ford. He said that I've never been the smartest man, but what I've learned to do is surround myself with the smartest people. Yeah. Right? And that's the value of leadership. That's the value because you're the one that's bringing together the individuals to make the entire operation better. So when you can learn to remove your ego, and there's a very good book out there, it's called Ego is the Enemy. It's a really good book for anybody who loves reading. Ego is the Enemy. And it really talks about this, how it can destroy companies, it can destroy people. And when you can walk away from that for a second and go, wait a second, I'm for the better good of the business. And what I need to do is I don't have all the answers. Nobody has all the answers. Nobody ever will have all the answers. As we grow older, we learn that the less we know is a sign that we're just walking this earth, as any other human being. And so if companies are willing to allow outside eyes to come in, and it really is, because when you're inside, like you use the farmer metaphor, you can't see it when you're in it. It's like a relationship. All your friends are telling you something's wrong, but yet you don't see it. Yeah.
Well, that's a good point. So what do you think is on the horizon for the industry, particularly with all of the these lawyers and exit companies and all of the consolidation, actually?
Yeah. Well, the attorneys will never stop. They just won't.
Right.
Because of course they make their money by having consumers believe that they were misled. they were lied to. And then they, of course, are making tens of millions of dollars by, going after that false narrative. But what I really think that their main argument that's out in public perception right now is that you have this long-term liability that you can't get out of. And I think, and companies are doing this, when they figure out how to shift their product into more of a membership type program to where, and here's something unique that I've been hearing, is that you buy in, let's say for 10 years, that's the term of the note. And then after that, they can opt in for another 10 years. Okay, so it's them choosing to opt in. What that does is it allows the sales operation to stretch out the value proposition. Because if you take the value proposition within 10 years, ownership is more expensive. It just is. Mm-hmm. If you can stretch it out and you tell the consumer that you can actually opt in, go for another 10 years, and after that 10 years, you can opt in, you can go for another 10 years. Then now you have positioned to where that long-term liability is gone as an objection. And it is right now, as far as what you hear in consumer perception, the usage stuff, that's going away because companies with consolidation, like you talked about, Sharon, there's so much more options. There's so much more flexibility and choices and what you can do with it. That's not the issue anymore. The issue really is coming down to this debt that I have. I can't get out of it.
Yeah.
And that fear, because the planted fear is like that debt is going to financially make you go bankrupt. And it's such a powerful fear that's why people are afraid of it. But if you create in the product, for one, something different, but in the sales process, if you make people understand that long-term liability is a benefit, it's a true benefit to your family enjoying your life, far into the future, and then you can transfer, I'm not using the word sell, you can transfer it, down to others. That actually will, just by the change in language, will start to remove and diminish that negative, energy that people feel around being locked into something.
Oh, well, that's very good. And Dave, I really appreciate your putting this all together and look forward to your next two parts in this series about how to grow sustainably in your sales. And I did want to say to the audience that if you enjoy our showcases, I hope that you will go on to resorttrades.com/learning center and go ahead and register for future webinars. And also you'll be able to find Dave's webinar as well as a number of others. We've been doing this for about a year now on our channel on YouTube. So thank you very much. Oh, and do be sure to go online and register for May 27 at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. We have a showcase with about fiber-built umbrellas and cushions. My longtime friend is presenting, and I'm sure he will keep it. Oh, I'm sorry. It begins at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. So here's your chance to learn how to differentiate your outdoor furnishings and outsparkle your competition. So Dave, again, thank you. And thank you to our listeners.
You bet. Thank you.
Hi. I'm Sharon Scott Wilson, publisher of Resort Trades. We have been bringing you free videos in the hopes that we can help solidify the timeshare resort community and provide you, vacation ownership professional that you are, with some useful information. So when you hit the like button or share or comment, you're helping yourself too to be more integrated into the community, helping others get to know you. So be an influencer, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell icon so you'll be notified when we post a new video. And thank you. Good luck.